apparently Ruby Franke was crying in court, and she made these claims that one of her minor children was sexually abusing their sibling and molested several family members, children in the neighborhood, at least I think 20 people. She claimed that this child abused 20 people. She claimed that two of her children were playing some sort of padding game, didn't go into further detail, talked about how one of the children was watching pornography at a young age. It's so shocking, and I'm not sure what that means to her defense or what that means to her case for her to make this kind of claim.
I think it's tremendously detrimental to her case. First of all, I mean, she should have, if any of this were true, she should have reported it at the time rather than waiting to be arrested and arraigned. So that's number one, because if that abuse was going on, that's on her and her husband, to the extent that the husband was there, which I understand he may not have been. So we shouldn't impugn him at all right now. But that all points the finger at her. And also the fact that she would make those allegations against her own children in a public forum. Now, I don't know whether she identified the child, but it wouldn't be hard to figure out since it's a finite universe of 6. I think it's terrible for her defense. I think it also shows it doesn't shine a very good light on her character that she would say these things in public, even if true.
So the judge said that this child will then need to be placed in a home with no other children in light of these allegations. Again, this is based on the reporting of what happened in that hearing. I'm glad I have you because I wanted to ask you first about that. If this is totally false and this is just a wild, outlandish claim, could a minor child have a legal action against a parent like this?
Yes, I think so. And I think the cause of action would be stayed until that child hits adulthood. So I don't think the not to be too technical about this, but I think the child does not have to move with the alacrity that anybody else, that an adult would have to move. I think there's a legal presumption that allows him to go to adulthood before the statute of limitations clock begins to run. But yes, I absolutely do think the child has a cause of action against the mother for defamation and for could be, physical battery and all kinds of other civil versions of the criminal charges that have been filed.
Yeah, before I even get to my next point, I guess in terms of the victims in this case, there's the criminal aspect, but we always know that there's also a civil aspect. Do you anticipate that is something we should be on the lookout? Children suing Ruby Franke for this alleged abuse?
Absolutely. And again, I think they have the luxury, although luxury may not be the right word, but they have the luxury of waiting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oftentimes, as you know, people wait until the criminal case has been fully adjudicated before filing the civil action, or they try to stay the statute of limitations. Here, they won't have that issue. But yeah, absolutely, I would anticipate a civil action by the children. But then you get into the issue of, what type of recovery is possible and what kind of assets is Franke going to have at the end of the day. I know she's a YouTube celebrity, but I think the cost of her criminal defense is going to be such, I don't know what kind of assets she's going to have to satisfy a judgment.
And remember, I said alleged because I'm very curious to see what can be proven. And this is one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, Ben, because I am bothered by something. I'm bothered by the fact that people for a while suspected that Franke was up to no good. There was a change.org petition set up where people signed to have Franke investigated for allegations of child abuse. They wanted Child Protective Services to get involved. There was criticism of her online. People were making comments about her. She responded to those comments. Police were called to the home last year after they received reports over the well-being of the kids. In fact, Shari Franke, Ruby's daughter, called police to alert them that the kids had been left home alone for, I think it was 5 days. This happened back in September of 2022. So you have all these people saying these things about Ruby Franke and doing all these things in light of Ruby Franke. Here's the part I don't understand, I'm bothered by. If all of this was fake, if all of this was lies spread about her, why didn't Ruby Franke ever file a lawsuit for defamation against anybody, right? And I never saw that she did. Is that not revealing to you?
It is. It is, because you can imagine, Jesse, if you were accused of such a monstrous thing, or if I were, that would be my first inclination. Now, she would probably have to prove actual malice, which, as you know, is knowledge or reckless, extreme recklessness as to the truth. But I think you would take that on, if you had been accused of this. So I think it is very telling. And in the case of Johnny Depp, I mean, he certainly took it on despite all the inherent risks of a defamation case, because he needed to clear his name.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you could say, well, maybe she felt that nobody was believing her. I don't know. The YouTube channel, she stopped posting videos. She was responding to the criticism, so it seemed like people were believing what was being said about her, which, again, raises the question why she didn't take legal action if all of this was fake. And also, I'll mention, Ben, when she was arrested, when she was taken into custody, she requested a lawyer and did not speak to police. Now, do you find that to be, hey, that was just a smart legal strategy, she shouldn't say anything? Or is it suspicious? Because, again, if she really had nothing to do with this and she's arrested, she could have easily said, wait a second. My kids are abused. What are you talking about? Are they okay? She chose not to say anything and lawyered up. Your thoughts?
I think it's both. I mean, I think it's both smart legally, but it's also suspect, especially as a mother or a parent. I think your first concern would be the well-being of the child. And once you were satisfied that your 12-year-old, was in safe hands, your concern would be to clear your name and to find out exactly what happened. So yes, I do find it suspicious. So it's not something that the jury will hear.
Mm. I wanted to talk to you about something that I was talking about, how things didn't happen earlier. Could she have been arrested earlier? Could this have been stopped earlier? And I wanted to ask you about whether the Department of Child and Family Services could be in legal trouble. I mentioned how police were contacted to check in on the Frankes. Police Lieutenant Warren Foster told NBC News that police made several attempts to follow up what was going on. He said that there were inquiries from the DCFS. DCFS yielded no results. Apparently, they were called to the House in 2020. You have Representative Christine Watkins, who is a chair of a panel that reviews the DCFS, and she said, quote, I had concerns when I heard about the case. Not only were neighbors calling, but older siblings were calling too. It sounds like those kids were in pretty bad shape, and it's certainly something we have the right to call DCFS out on to know what might have gone wrong. We always have this conversation in child abuse cases. Why did not the Department of Family and Child Services do more? Could they be held liable in any way? What do you think?
Yes, I believe they could be. DCFS will enjoy, and I don't know the particular Utah statute, but they will enjoy some measure of sovereign immunity. But it should not be impossible to sue them. I've had cases where we've sued government entities, state government entities, and you have to navigate around the immunity issues. But absolutely, they can be sued, and it sounds like they have a lot to answer for in this case. I mean, just one of the clips showed her on her program saying that she wouldn't feed the children until they completed their chores. Now, again, as a parent, you do want your kids to do their chores, but I don't. I think it is wildly inappropriate, if not abusive, to withhold breakfast until they've done their chores. I mean, I think there are other inducements you can give to your children, but that it certainly dovetails with the allegation that two of the children at least were emaciated.